I was not taking care of myself. I was just existing and working a lot. You were just working, looking out for opportunities, working with this artist or getting more recognition. Lucas, David. Charlotte's Web. Fiction. Based on a true pitch to Good Charlotte. The good spider keeps spinning and spinning so the good pig can stay alive. The winning pig does not become food. Maybe the spider knew, maybe she did not. But what you do remember of this classic story is that in the end, the spider dies from exhaustion and the pig wins first prize and is saved. I'm sitting alone in a big creative office Christmas Eve. I have friends, but I don't reach out. I have a family, but it's hard for me to make small talk, which is what most people would request of me. Cross campus, Santa Monica. I live about 15 minutes bike ride away from this co-creative space. I'm learning WordPress and drafting the concept of the publication. I realize I have a team, but that team is mostly a committee in my own head. And I wonder why I even need an office. Perhaps it's to remind me that I'm a real entrepreneur and not a fraud. Still, I don't like being confined to the same place. I'm irritable, restless, and alcoholic with a bipolar mind. It took me 3 years to realize that I did not need a physical space to validate what I'm up to. I had to go back to basics when I first started solo traveling in 2013. The travel itself inspired me to learn how to walk with God. That is the purpose of solo travel.
It's a free resource economy, but you can't have free resources if you still have a dysfunctional consciousness. Does that make sense? So we have to correct the consciousness first. How do we correct the consciousness? Is through exposure. That's the Christ. When you're nailed to a cross and you're getting beaten and you're fucking taking it, you are fully exposed and you are wounded. It's his testament that he demonstrated that you could be dragged through the mud and still be still and know that you are full potential and that you do not need to align to that. But we align to it consensually because we repeat patterns, because there's lack of consciousness in our behavior. Lack of consciousness in our behavior because we are stuck in a poor idea. And these ideas fractal out like branches of a tree. And we're at the edge of one branch, but the root is like consensual thinking. And then even etheric thinking, the area of thinking where you can go, like I was saying, in remote viewing and when you practice your dreaming. Do you understand? When you can open that aperture and swim in that space and see it from an existential point of view, that's how you clear your rackets.
Oh my God, I know exactly what I'm here for now. Oh my God.
It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, when I see many searching for answers, far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, because you know that's what we need before we say, oh, well, you're a good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
You need to realize you're not unique in that way. Stuff happens to you, right? It happens to other people. You're not the first one to have gone through it. But 2,000 years ago, when Jesus steps onto the pages of history, we see him begin to shift this sort of thing, right? We see him begin to say, if all you do is for you, then really in the end, not only will you hurt yourself and others, you'll actually lose yourself. You'll actually lose yourself. That's nothing to do with Eminem. what's happening there is people are identifying with Jesus in his death and resurrection. Death, resurrection. That's sort of the whole thing here. So Jesus is in this moment, and he's beginning to identify with us, submitting to the old covenant, submitting to the law in the same way, because that's what he was born under. So Jesus is doing this. So John agrees to baptize Jesus, and he does. People watching and thinking, this is kind of wild. This guy that John just said is so amazing. Here he goes. He dunks in. And you'd think that maybe at this point, Jesus would just sort of pop up out of the water and say, thank you, John. You can go now. I'm here. Here I am, John. Just get off the stage, right? Would you please? Thank you for that brilliant introduction. Can I have your attention, please? And just sort of keep going from that. But he doesn't. Instead, he actually goes off to the wilderness. So it's kind of like, here's Jesus, the Messiah. All that kind of stuff. And then he's gone. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Now, the Greek word here is diabolo. You've probably heard the word diabolical or diablo. That is, by the way, the best name for a dog ever. Again, for some of you, you grew up in church and you've sort of heard this story. That's all I need to tell you. You immediately know what this story is. Okay, so you already think you know. Hang on, stuff in there. Why, anything you look at, why did they put it in there? Because they put it in for a reason. There had to be a reason for everything that you would actually write down. So as we go into this bit of narrative, we're going to jump around between Matthew and Luke especially. What you're going to see here as we go through this, and you're going to see this continue later on because Jesus refers to this later on, is that this is something that chases Jesus through his short ministry, his 3-year ministry. It continues to chase him. The temptation to do things the old way, to submit to the old way, just do it the easy way, because that's what it would have been at this point. Rather than initiate the new ways that he had come to do. The old way was the me first way, right? Power. It's all for me. The kingdom is of this world way. This was the normal way, kingdoms of the world. So here's how it happened. After fasting for 40 days in the wilderness, 40 days a night, he's hungry. But this is no accident. I imagine, he's sort of coming out here and setting himself up for temptation. I sort of imagine that great boxer, Rocky Balboa, putting his hands down to dare his opponent to hit him. Sort of like, come on, hit me, right? That's sort of, show me what you got, because I'm not going to fall down. I'm not going to be derailed from what my mission is here. Give me your best shot. I'm serious about my mission, and you are not going to derail it. So we read this in Matthew 4:3. The tempter came and said to him, if you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread. The tempter, in Greek, someone is the one trying someone, putting them to the test, almost like an interrogator or a prosecutor, this sort of thing. The tempter says, so Jesus, if you are the Son of God, you're hungry. See all these stones, don't they look delicious? How about you turn one of them into bread? It'll be great. You can even turn it into a baguette if you'd like, right? If you like French bread. You turn it into one of those, you'll love it. You'll feel so much better after you've had something to eat. I mean, come on, this should be easy for you, Jesus, right? Child's play. Come on, you deserve it. If I were you, that's what I would do, Jesus. Right? And just to touch on the lesson of temptation here, so we will talk about that for just a second. Bishop N.T. Wright, maybe you heard of him, maybe you haven't, you look him up. He points out, and this is a key thing, this is a very interesting observation, that Jesus doesn't begin to argue with the temptation or with the devil about temptation. He doesn't begin to argue with it, because he suggests that arguing with the temptation, which is maybe what many of us do, is often a way of playing with it until it becomes too attractive to resist. Playing with that temptation, almost indulging it until it actually becomes acceptable, if not even attractive, and maybe even too attractive to resist. But what does Jesus do? He reaches back into the Jewish scriptures, which were the scriptures at that point, the Old Covenant, under which he was born, and he says this, it is written, man does not live by bread alone. You've probably heard that statement before. So here Jesus is looking back at a time when the nation of Israel, as I mentioned, is in the wilderness, and they are hungry. There's nothing to eat, and God provides manna from heaven. God is teaching his people to depend on him and trust him to meet their needs, not just occasionally, but actually daily. And Jesus finishes this rebuff by continuing, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. So basically, he's saying here that I'm committed to doing exactly what God the Father wanted me to do. I trust him completely. I'm going to do what he's asked me to do. Turning these stones into bread because he's hungry. What's the problem? He's hungry. When someone's hungry, they eat. It's normal. This is what anybody called the Son of God would be expected to do, right? Snap your fingers, there it is. But we've already begun to see that he did not come to do what people expected him to do, but what needed to be done. We're already beginning to see that he did not come to do what people expected him to do, but do what needed to be done. He came to do a new thing, not necessarily an expected thing.
I feel like when I'd rather be sane, 'cause they don't act with you up to the same.
know if they could go on or they could go forward. I just want to tell you guys, if you feel alone, and I want you to know that we fucking care about you, and we want you here, and you're important to us, and that's why I hear you sing this song every night. So, this one's called